Commander Vraltesh stood on the bridge of his warship, looking at the stars through the large viewing window. He had been a soldier for 300 years. In that time, he had seen more battles than most beings would see in 10 lifetimes. His species, the Korvathians, were known throughout the galaxy as the greatest warriors. They had conquered 42 star systems. They had defeated countless enemies. No one could stand against them. Today, Vraltesh was going to deal with a new problem. A young species called humans had started to expand beyond their homeworld. They called their planet Earth, a small blue world in an unremarkable part of the galaxy. The Korvathians had been watching them for some time now. What Vraltesh saw did not impress him. The humans had simple ships with basic engines. Their weapons were primitive kinetic guns that fired metal slugs. Their shields were weak compared to Korvathian technology. The largest human ship, called the Defiant, was barely 1/3 the size of Vraltesh's flagship. The Korvathian High Command had given him only 15 ships to handle the humans. It was almost insulting. Vraltesh needed at least 50 ships to conquer most civilizations. 15 ships meant his leaders thought the humans were weak. Vraltesh had studied the human communications. Their military bases sent messages that his people had intercepted. The humans talked about peace, about cooperation, about building a better future. Vraltesh had heard such words before from species that were about to be conquered. Weak species always talked about peace. Strong species took what they wanted. The human colony nearest to Korvathian space was called New Terra. It had about 2 million humans living on it. The planet had good resources, including rare metals that the Korvathian Empire needed. Vraltesh had sent the humans a simple message: surrender the colony and leave peacefully, or the Korvathians would take it by force. He expected the humans to run away or beg for mercy. Instead, a human captain named Jake Morrison responded. The man's face appeared on the communication screen. He looked old for a human, with gray hair at his temples and lines around his eyes. He wore a simple uniform without much decoration. His voice was calm, almost tired. Commander Vraltesh, we don't want this fight, Morrison said. Pull your ships back, and we can talk about this. Vraltesh made a clicking sound with his mandibles, which was how Korvathians laughed. You have 6 hours to surrender your colony worlds. After that, we will take them by force. Your ships cannot match ours. Your weapons are toys compared to ours. Do not waste lives fighting a battle you cannot win. Morrison looked at him for a long moment. The human's face showed no fear. That was unusual. Most species showed fear when facing the Korvathian Empire. But there was something else in Morrison's expression. Something Vraltesh could not identify. It looked almost like sadness or maybe pity. Commander, you should know something about humans before you do this, Morrison said. We have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We know what war costs. We know what it means to lose people we care about. That's why we're asking you to reconsider. Vraltesh felt irritated. This human was trying to sound wise, trying to sound experienced. But what could a species that had only reached the stars a few decades ago know about war? The Korvathians had been warriors for thousands of years. They had perfected the art of combat. You know nothing of war, Vraltesh said. 6 hours. Make your choice. He cut the communication. His officers around the bridge seemed pleased. They were looking forward to an easy victory. But Vraltesh felt something strange in his chest. It was a feeling he had not experienced in many years. It might have been doubt, but he pushed it away. He had conquered too many worlds, defeated too many enemies to doubt himself now. The 6 hours passed slowly. Vraltesh used the time to position his ships around New Terra. His 15 warships were more than enough to blockade the planet. The humans had 6 ships in orbit around their colony. 6 ships against 15. The odds were clearly in favor of the Korvathians. When the deadline arrived, Vraltesh contacted Morrison one final time. Captain, what is your decision? Morrison appeared on the screen again. Behind him, Vraltesh could see the bridge of the Defiant. Human crew members were working at their stations. They looked focused and calm. Too calm for people about to die. "We're not surrendering," Morrison said simply. "If you want this colony, you'll have to take it." "So be it," Vraltesh replied. "May your gods show you mercy, because I will not." Morrison's expression did not change. "We don't need mercy, Commander. We need you to understand what you're starting, but I can see you won't listen. Some lessons can only be learned the hard way." The communication ended. Vraltesh ordered his ships to attack positions. His weapons officers charged the plasma cannons. His shield operators maximized defensive power. Everything was ready. This would be over quickly, and then the Korvathian Empire would have another colony world. But as Vraltesh gave the order to fire, that strange feeling in his chest came back. It was stronger now. Morrison's words echoed in his mind. Some lessons can only be learned the hard way. What did that mean? What could these primitive humans possibly teach him? Vraltesh had fought against species with better technology than the humans. He had defeated enemies with larger fleets. He had won battles where he was outnumbered. Experience was on his side. 300 years of combat knowledge told him this battle would be simple, but somewhere deep inside, in a place where instinct lived beyond logic, Vraltesh wondered if maybe, just maybe, he had underestimated these humans. That doubt lasted only a moment before he pushed it away again. He was Commander Vraltesh of the Korvathian Empire. He knew war. He had mastered combat across 100 worlds. He had no idea how wrong he was. He had no idea that the next few days would teach him the most important lesson of his long military career. He thought he knew what war meant. He thought he understood power. The humans were about to show him that he understood nothing at all. The battle began exactly as Vraltesh expected. His 15 warships moved into attack formation around New Terra. The 6 human ships formed a defensive line between the Korvathian fleet and the colony. Vraltesh could see them on his tactical display. They looked so small, so fragile compared to his massive warships. "All ships open fire," Vraltesh commanded. Blue plasma torpedoes streaked across the darkness of space. Each torpedo carried enough energy to destroy a small ship completely. Vraltesh had launched 30 torpedoes in the first volley. That should be enough to cripple at least half the human fleet. Then the remaining human ships would retreat and the battle would be over. But the humans did something unexpected. Instead of running away or trying to dodge the torpedoes, they accelerated directly toward the Korvathian fleet. Their engines burned bright blue, pushing harder than Vraltesh thought possible. The human ships moved fast, faster than his tactical computer had predicted. "Sir, the human vessels are accelerating at dangerous levels," his science officer said. "Those acceleration rates should kill their crews." Vraltesh watched in confusion as the human ships weaved through the incoming fire. They moved in coordinated patterns, each ship covering another. Then they opened fire with their kinetic weapons. Metal slugs launched from their railguns, moving incredibly fast. At first, Vraltesh was not worried. Kinetic weapons were primitive. His shields would stop them easily. But then alarms started blaring across his bridge. 3 of his cruisers reported shield failures. That was impossible. Kinetic weapons should not be able to penetrate military-grade shields. "Analysis," Vraltesh demanded. "How did their weapons break through our shields?" His science officer worked frantically at his console. "Commander, the kinetic rounds are moving much faster than we calculated. The humans are using some kind of gravitational acceleration. They are creating tiny artificial gravity wells and using them to speed up their projectiles. The rounds are hitting our shields at nearly half the speed of light." Vraltesh felt his confidence shake. Half the speed of light? That was faster than most energy weapons. The kinetic energy from such impacts would be devastating. He watched his tactical display as one of his cruisers took 3 direct hits. The ship's hull cracked open like an egg. Atmosphere vented into space. The cruiser was dead. "Return fire. All weapons," Vraltesh ordered. His fleet launched everything they had. Plasma torpedoes, particle beams, and graviton cannons all fired at the human ships. The space between the 2 fleets lit up like a star. Surely nothing could survive such firepower. But the humans kept coming. Their point defense systems were incredibly accurate. Small laser turrets shot down incoming torpedoes. Their shields, while weaker than Korvathian shields, were positioned at angles that deflected most of the energy weapons. And their ships kept moving in those strange patterns that made them hard to hit. A voice came over the communication channel. It was a human woman. This is Lieutenant Kate Sullivan to all human vessels. Pattern Delta 7. Execute now. The human ship suddenly split into two groups. 3 ships went high, 3 went low. They flanked the Corvathian formation from 2 sides. Vraltesh had seen this tactic before, but never executed so quickly or precisely. His ships were now taking fire from multiple angles. Another cruiser exploded, then another. Vraltesh could not believe what he was seeing. His fleet was losing. They had better technology, more ships, and more experience. But somehow the humans were winning. How are they doing this? Vraltesh asked more to himself than his crew. His tactical officer answered anyway.
Sir, their coordination is perfect.
Every ship knows exactly where every other ship is. Their communications must be nearly instantaneous, and their pilots are pulling maneuvers that should be impossible. On the main screen, Vraltesh watched as the Defiant executed a turn that generated over 40 times normal gravity. Any living being should be crushed by such forces. But the ship completed the turn and fired its railguns at point-blank range into another Corvathian cruiser. The slugs punched completely through the ship, destroying it instantly. Captain Morrison's face appeared on the communication screen. He looked tired but not afraid. Behind him, Vraltesh could see human crew members working calmly at their stations. Some had blood on their uniforms. The Defiant had clearly taken damage. But the humans kept fighting. Commander Vraltesh, you can still withdraw, Morrison said. This doesn't have to continue. You've already lost 4 ships. How many more of your people need to die today? Vraltesh felt anger rising in his chest. He had never retreated from a battle. The Corvathian Empire did not run from inferior species. We still outnumber you. We will overwhelm you eventually. Morrison sighed. It was a sound of deep weariness. Commander, we have been fighting each other for thousands of years. Humans have fought more wars than you can imagine. We know every trick, every tactic, every strategy. What you are seeing right now is us being defensive. We are trying not to kill too many of your people, but if you keep pushing, we will stop being nice. You are bluffing, Vraltesh said. But even as he said it, he wondered if it was true. Am I? Morrison asked. Watch what happens next. The communication ended. Vraltesh did not have to wait long to see what Morrison meant. The human ships suddenly changed their tactics. Instead of defensive patterns, they became aggressive. They stopped trying to avoid fire and started trading shots directly with the Corvathian ships. A human destroyer took a direct hit from a plasma torpedo. Its shields failed and part of its hull melted. But the ship did not retreat. Instead, it rammed directly into a Corvathian cruiser at full speed. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire. They are insane, Vraltesh's tactical officer whispered. But Vraltesh understood something in that moment. The humans were not insane. They were desperate and determined. They were willing to trade their lives to protect their colony. That kind of determination was dangerous. It was the mark of a species that would fight to the last breath. The battle continued for hours. By the end of the first day, Vraltesh had lost 7 ships, 7 out of 15. The humans had lost 2 ships. The math was simple and terrible. If the battle continued at this rate, the Corvathian fleet would be destroyed before the human fleet was. Vraltesh called for reinforcements. He sent a message back to Corvathian High Command. Send more ships. The humans are stronger than expected. Send many more ships. As he waited for the reply, Vraltesh looked at the tactical display. The 4 remaining human ships were regrouping near the colony. They were damaged but still fighting. The humans had weapons that should not work so well. They had tactics that were too good for such a young species. They had courage that seemed limitless. For the first time in 300 years, Commander Vraltesh began to wonder if he had made a terrible mistake. He had thought the humans were weak. He had thought this would be an easy victory. But after just one day of fighting, he knew the truth. The humans were not weak. They were not easy prey. They were something else entirely. Something dangerous. Something that fought with a skill and determination that Vraltesh had never seen before. And this was just their colony defense fleet. Morrison had mentioned that. These were not even their main military ships. These were just the ships they used to guard their outer colonies. If this was their defensive fleet, what would their attack fleet be like? Vraltesh did not want to find out, but he had a feeling he would learn the answer soon. He had started this fight. Now he would have to see it through to the end. Whatever that end might be. 3 days had passed since the battle began. Commander Vraltesh sat in his command chair, staring at reports that made no sense. His reinforcements had arrived, bringing his total fleet to 70 ships. 70 Corvathian warships against just 12 human vessels. The humans had received 6 more ships from nearby colonies. By all military logic, the Corvathians should be winning easily, but they were not winning. They were barely holding their position. The problem was that the humans kept learning. Every tactic Vraltesh used worked once, maybe twice. Then the humans figured out how to counter it. When his fleet used a pincer movement, the humans adapted their formation. When he tried to overwhelm one section of their line, they redistributed their forces perfectly. It was like fighting an enemy that could read his mind. "Sir, intercepted human communication," his communications officer said. "Engineering channel." Vraltesh listened to the recording. A human man's voice came through, calm and focused. "This is Dan Cooper from the Ranger. We have analyzed their plasma dispersion patterns. I am sending the data to all ships now. Adjust your shield harmonics to these frequencies." Within 2 hours, Corvathian plasma weapons became 40% less effective against human shields. Vraltesh could not believe it. How could they adapt so quickly? His science officers took days to analyze enemy weapons. The humans did it in hours. It was not just their technology that was improving. Their tactics evolved with every battle. When Vraltesh deployed his stealth fighters, they were effective for exactly one attack run. Then a human pilot named Lisa Grant developed a new detection method. She sent a message to her fleet about looking for thermal wake patterns in space. After that, the stealth fighters were useless. "They are learning too fast," Vraltesh said to his second-in-command. "How is this possible?" His second-in-command, an old warrior named Kresh, looked troubled. "Perhaps they have fought many wars among themselves. Perhaps they have experience we do not understand." Vraltesh thought about Morrison's words from the first day. The human captain had said they had been fighting for thousands of years. But how could that be? Their technology was so young. Unless they meant fighting each other. Perhaps humans had spent thousands of years developing ways to kill other humans. That would explain their tactical knowledge. The thought was disturbing. A species that spent most of its history fighting itself would develop very different skills than a species that fought other civilizations. The Corvathians fought to conquer, but if humans fought each other, they would fight to survive. Those were very different kinds of warfare. On the 4th day, Vraltesh tried a massive coordinated assault. He ordered 40 ships to attack the human fleet at once from multiple directions. It should have been overwhelming. The humans had nowhere to run, no way to defend against so many attackers at once. But a human commander named Ryan Blake organized a defensive formation that Vraltesh had never seen before. The 12 human ships formed a sphere, each one covering specific angles. Their overlapping fields of fire created a killing zone that destroyed 8 Corvathian ships in the first minute. 8 ships gone in 60 seconds. Vraltesh ordered a retreat. His fleet pulled back to regroup. He had lost 40 ships now, 40 out of 70. The humans had lost 6 ships total. The math was getting worse. That night, as Vraltesh reviewed the battle recordings, he saw something that made his blood cold. One of the human ships, called the Valiant, had taken critical damage. Its reactor was failing. The ship was going to explode. The captain, a human named Ben Torres, had time to evacuate his crew. But Torres did not evacuate. Instead, he aimed his dying ship at the largest Corvathian dreadnought. Vraltesh watched as the Valiant accelerated at maximum speed toward the dreadnought. Torres was on the communication channel speaking to his crew. "Get to the escape pods now." "That's an order," Torres said. "Captain, you need to come with us," someone replied. "No time. Someone needs to keep her steady. Now go." "That's an order." Vraltesh watched as the Valiant crashed into the dreadnought at full speed. Both ships exploded in a massive fireball that lit up space. Torres had sacrificed himself to take an enemy ship with him. No chance for glory, no reward, just a cold calculation that his death could hurt the enemy. "They do not value their own lives," Vraltesh's tactical officer said quietly. But Vraltesh shook his head. "No, they value their lives very much. That is what makes this so terrible. They know they are dying. They know what they are losing. But they do it anyway because they believe it is necessary." That was when Vraltesh truly understood what he was fighting. These humans were not fearless. They were terrified, just like any other species. But they fought through their fear. They did what needed to be done even when it meant dying. That kind of enemy was the most dangerous kind. On the 5th day, Captain Morrison contacted Vraltesh again. The human looked even more tired than before. His uniform was dirty and he had a bandage on his forehead. But his eyes were still sharp, still focused. "Commander Vraltesh, I need to tell you something important," Morrison said. "What you have been fighting for these 5 days is our colony defense fleet. These are not our best ships. These are not our main military." Vraltesh felt that cold feeling in his chest again. "What do you mean?" "I mean that when your fleet attacked New Terra, we sent a message to Earth. That message arrived 3 days ago. The Earth Defense Force has been traveling here since then. They will arrive tomorrow." "You are bluffing," Vraltesh said, but his voice sounded weak even to himself. Morrison leaned forward. "Commander, let me tell you about human history. We have fought wars that killed millions. We developed weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. We nearly made our own planet uninhabitable. We have been fighting each other with everything we have for thousands of years." He paused, letting that sink in. "The ships you have been fighting are designed to defend colonies from pirates and raiders. They are not designed for major warfare. But the ships coming from Earth? Those are warships built by a species that spent its entire history learning how to kill other humans as efficiently as possible. Those are ships designed by people who understand that war is not about honor or glory. War is about winning, no matter what it costs." Vraltesh wanted to argue. He wanted to say that Morrison was trying to scare him. But he looked at the tactical data from the past 5 days. He looked at how quickly the humans learned. He looked at their willingness to sacrifice themselves. He looked at their coordination and their tactics. If these were their defensive ships, what would their attack ships be like?
How long until they arrive?
Vraltesh asked. 18 hours, Morrison replied. "You have 18 hours to decide, Commander. You can withdraw now and return home. Or you can stay and see what human military power really means. Your choice." The communication ended. Vraltesh sat in his command chair thinking. He could retreat. He could admit defeat and take his remaining ships home. But that would be shameful. The Corvathian Empire did not retreat. His people would see him as weak, but if he stayed, he might lose everything. These colony defense ships had already destroyed most of his fleet. What would happen when the real human military arrived? Vraltesh made his decision. He would stay. He would fight. He would show these humans that the Corvathian Empire could not be frightened away. Pride demanded it. Honor required it. He had no idea that pride and honor were about to cost him more than he could imagine. 18 hours passed slowly. Commander Vraltesh used the time to prepare his fleet. He had 30 ships left from his original 70. They were damaged and tired, but still capable of fighting. He positioned them in the strongest defensive formation he knew. If the human Earth fleet wanted to attack, they would pay dearly for it. His sensor officer suddenly called out, "Commander, massive gravitational distortion detected at the edge of the system." Vraltesh watched his main screen. Space itself seemed to tear open, creating a swirling portal of blue light. Through this portal came ships. Not 6 ships like before. Not 12. Dozens of them. Massive warships that made his own flagship look small. Leading the fleet was a vessel that his computer identified as the Indomitable. It was 3 times larger than any ship in his fleet. Behind it came 47 more capital ships, each one bristling with weapons. But it was not just the big ships. Hundreds of smaller vessels accompanied them. Fighters, bombers, and support craft filled the space around the capital ships like a swarm. "Count them," Vraltesh ordered. His tactical officer worked quickly. 48 capital ships. 233 support craft. "Commander, we are outnumbered more than 10 to 1. Vraltesh felt his confidence crumble. This was not a defense fleet. This was an invasion force. This was the military might of a species that had clearly prepared for war on a massive scale. But what happened next was even more disturbing. The human fleet did not attack immediately. Instead, they deployed thousands of small drones. These drones spread throughout the system in a coordinated pattern. Within minutes, every Corvathian ship was surrounded by dozens of these drones. "What are they doing?" Vraltesh asked. His science officer studied the readings. "The drones are scanning us, Commander. Every ship is being tracked. They know our exact position, our shield strength, our weapon status. They have complete awareness of the battlefield. The humans had not fired a single shot, but they had already won the information battle. They knew everything about the Corvathian fleet. But the Corvathians knew almost nothing about the human fleet except that it was massive. A communication came through. A human woman's face appeared on the screen. She wore a uniform with more decorations than Morrison's simple outfit. Her name appeared below her image. Admiral Claire Martinez. Commander Vraltesh, I am Admiral Martinez of the Earth Defense Force. I am going to give you the same option that Captain Morrison gave you. Withdraw now, take your ships home, and tell your empire that humanity is not prey. Vraltesh tried to sound strong. You have more ships, but we will still fight. The Corvathian Empire does not surrender. Martinez looked at him with an expression that was hard to read. Commander, do you know what makes humans different from most species in the galaxy? Your weapons? Vraltesh guessed. No. Our history. Martinez leaned back in her chair. Most species develop in relatively peaceful environments. They develop warfare as a way to compete for resources. But Earth was different. Earth was a death world. Everything on our planet wanted to kill us. Predators, diseases, weather, everything. She continued. We did not just compete for resources, Commander. We fought for survival every single day for millions of years. And when we ran out of external threats, we turned on each other. We spent thousands of years developing ways to kill other humans. We got very, very good at it. Vraltesh listened, feeling a growing sense of dread. Every ship in my fleet was designed by humans trying to think of ways to fight other humans, Martinez said. Every weapon system was created by engineers competing to build something better than their rivals. Every tactic was developed through centuries of humans fighting humans. When we finally united and stopped fighting each other, we did not forget those lessons. We just aimed all that knowledge in the same direction. She paused. You attacked our colony. You killed thousands of our people. You destroyed 6 of our ships and killed their crews. Those people had families waiting for them. They had children, parents, friends, and now 3 billion humans on Earth know that someone attacked us. They know someone thought we were weak. Martinez's expression hardened. You wanted to see human power, Commander. You are about to get your wish. The communication ended. Vraltesh barely had time to process her words before his tactical officer shouted, They are launching weapons. The human fleet opened fire with coordinated precision. Every ship fired at once. Thousands of weapons lit up the space between the two fleets. Missiles, railgun rounds, laser beams, and weapons Vraltesh had never seen before all streaked toward his fleet. Evasive maneuvers. Return fire, Vraltesh ordered. His ships tried to dodge, but the human targeting was too accurate. The drones that surrounded them fed exact positioning data to the weapon systems. The human AI-assisted computers calculated trajectories faster than any organic mind could. The result was devastating. In the first 30 seconds, 5 Corvathian ships were destroyed, just gone, vaporized by the overwhelming firepower. Vraltesh watched in horror as another 3 ships took critical damage and went dead in space. His fleet tried to fight back, but the humans had thought of everything. They used electronic warfare to jam communications. Corvathian ships started shooting at each other by accident, because their sensors were giving false readings. When Vraltesh's ships tried to coordinate, their messages were intercepted and decoded almost instantly. A human weapon that Vraltesh had never encountered before struck one of his cruisers. It was some kind of X-ray laser powered by a nuclear explosion. The beam went straight through the ship's shields like they were not there. It vaporized the crew but left the hull mostly intact. An empty ghost ship tumbled through space. They are targeting our crews, not our ships, his science officer said, horrified. They are killing us in the most efficient way possible. The battle became a massacre. The humans fought with cold, calculated precision. They targeted command ships first, cutting off the Corvathian fleet's coordination. They used psychological warfare, sending messages that caused confusion and fear. They exploited every weakness, every gap in the Corvathian defenses. Commander Ryan Blake's voice came over an open channel. All human ships, pattern Omega-3. Let's finish this. The human fleet moved into a formation that surrounded the remaining Corvathian ships completely. There was no escape, no hope of retreat. They were trapped. Vraltesh looked at his tactical display. He had started this battle with 30 ships. After 4 hours of fighting, he had 15 left. Most of those were heavily damaged. His own flagship was barely functioning. Life support was failing. The engine was offline. Weapons were destroyed. He thought about his 300 years of military service. All those victories, all those conquered worlds. None of it had prepared him for this. The humans fought like no enemy he had ever faced. They did not fight for honor or glory. They fought to win using every advantage they could create. More importantly, they fought with the knowledge gained from thousands of years of fighting each other. Every tactic they used had been tested in countless wars. Every weapon had been refined through generations of human engineers trying to outdo each other. This was not the military of a peaceful species learning to fight. This was the military of a species that had perfected warfare through endless practice. Vraltesh made the hardest decision of his life. He opened a communication channel to Admiral Martinez. "I surrender. Please, no more killing." The firing stopped immediately. The sudden silence was shocking. Just seconds ago, the space around him was filled with weapons fire. Now it was quiet. Martinez's face appeared on his screen again. "Commander, you and your surviving crew will be taken aboard our ships. You will receive medical treatment. You will not be harmed. Do you understand?" "Yes," Vraltesh said quietly. "I understand." As Corvathian survivors were evacuated to human ships, Vraltesh realized something terrible. The humans had shown mercy. They could have destroyed his entire fleet. They could have killed everyone. But they stopped when he surrendered. They offered medical help to their enemies. That mercy was somehow more terrifying than their violence. It showed control, discipline, and confidence. The humans were so certain of their power that they could afford to be merciful. They did not need to kill everyone to prove they had won. Commander Vraltesh stood in a room aboard the Indomitable. His wounds had been treated by human doctors. They had been professional and careful, showing no anger toward him even though he had killed many of their people. Now he waited to meet with Admiral Martinez. He expected interrogation, maybe punishment. He got something very different. Admiral Martinez entered the room alone. She was not armed. She did not bring guards. She simply walked in and sat down across from Vraltesh at a simple table. For a long moment she just looked at him. "Why?" Vraltesh finally asked. "Why did you show mercy?" "We came to conquer your people. We killed thousands of humans. You could have destroyed us completely." Martinez folded her hands on the table. "Because we understand what you are feeling right now, Commander. You thought you knew what war was. You thought your experience made you superior. But you learned that experience in wars against species that developed in peaceful environments. You never fought a species like us." She stood and walked to a window that looked out at space. The debris field from the battle floated past. Pieces of Corvathian and human ships drifted together in death. Humanity did not develop warfare, Commander. Warfare developed humanity. For millions of years we had to fight just to survive on our planet. Then for thousands of years we fought each other. Every innovation, every technology, every strategy we developed came from trying to defeat other humans. Martinez turned back to face him. "Do you know what the worst part is? We got so good at killing each other that we almost destroyed ourselves. We built weapons that could end all life on Earth. We came close to using them many times. But we learned something important from all that violence when What did you learn?" Vraltesh asked. "We learned that winning a battle is easy. Any species can destroy their enemy. But building peace, creating something better than endless war, that is hard. That takes wisdom. That takes restraint." Martinez picked up a small device from the table and handed it to Vraltesh. "This data crystal contains human history. Records of our wars, our weapons, our tactics. I want you to take it back to your empire. I want you to show them what we are capable of when we are angry or afraid." Vraltesh took the crystal. "Why would you show us this?" "It gives away your secrets." "Because it is not a secret, Commander. It is a warning." Martinez sat down again. "What you fought in this system was us being gentle. This was us showing restraint. This was us trying to minimize casualties. You have not seen human warfare. You have seen human diplomacy backed by the threat of warfare." She leaned forward. "The fleet you fought today was designed to fight other human fleets. Every weapon system, every tactic, every strategy was created with one question in mind. How do we defeat the most dangerous, creative, and determined enemy we can imagine? The answer was always ourselves." Vraltesh thought about the battle, the human coordination, their adaptability, their willingness to sacrifice. "How can your species survive if you are so good at destroying each other?" "Because we are also very good at cooperation when we need to be," Martinez replied. "We are capable of terrible violence, but we are also capable of great compassion. We can destroy, but we can also build. We learn to channel our aggressive instincts into competition that makes us better instead of dead." She gestured to the window. "Every human ship out there was built by companies competing to make the best design. Every weapon was created by engineers trying to outdo their rivals. Every tactic was developed by military academies where students competed against each other. We took our drive to fight and used it to push each other to be better." Captain Jake Morrison entered the room. His uniform was clean now, and the weariness in his face had eased slightly. He nodded to Martinez and then looked at Vraltesh. "Commander, I tried to warn you," Morrison said. "I tried to tell you that we understood what war costs, but you had to learn the hard way." Vraltesh felt shame. "I thought you were weak. I thought your words about peace made you soft." Morrison shook his head. "Peace is not weakness, Commander. Peace is a choice. We choose not to use our full capacity for violence. But that choice can be unmade very quickly if someone threatens us." Martinez stood. "You are free to go, Commander. We are releasing all Corvathian prisoners. Your damaged ships will be towed to the edge of the system. We will even provide you with supplies for your journey home." "Why?" Vraltesh asked again. "Why show such kindness to your enemy?" "Because we want you to go home and tell everyone what happened here," Martinez said. "We want the Corvathian Empire to understand that humanity does not want enemies. We have spent enough of our history creating enemies among ourselves. We would prefer to have neighbors and trade partners instead." Morrison added, "But if your people decide to come at us again, if anyone in the galaxy decides we are easy prey, they need to understand what they are facing. You are our message, Commander. You are the proof of what happens when someone underestimates humanity." Over the next 2 days, Vraltesh and his surviving crew members were transferred to their damaged ships. Human engineers helped repair the most critical systems so they could make the journey home. Human doctors continued to treat the wounded. Throughout it all, the humans remained professional and respectful. Vraltesh spent his time studying the data Crystal Martinez had given him. He watched recordings of human history. He saw wars where millions died over small pieces of land. He saw weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. He saw the Cold War, where humans built enough nuclear weapons to destroy their planet many times over. But he also saw humans building the International Space Station together. He saw them cooperating on massive projects. He saw them creating art, music, and literature even in the darkest times. They were a species of contradictions, capable of terrible cruelty and amazing kindness, masters of destruction and creation. On the day Vraltesh's fleet was ready to leave, Morrison visited him one last time. The human captain brought him a gift. It was a book, an actual physical book made of paper. "What is this?" Vraltesh asked. "It is a collection of human war poetry," Morrison explained, "written by soldiers throughout our history. I want you to have it because I think it will help you understand us better than any tactical report." Vraltesh opened the book and read a few lines. The poems spoke of loss, of fear, of the cost of violence. They were written by people who had seen war and understood its true horror. "We remember our wars, Commander," Morrison said quietly. "We teach our children about them. We write poems and songs about the people who died. We build monuments to remember the cost, not because we are proud of the violence, but because we never want to forget what it costs." He paused. "That is why we tried to avoid this fight. That is why I gave you warnings, not because we were afraid, but because we knew exactly what would happen. We knew people would die. We knew ships would be destroyed. We knew families would lose loved ones. We have seen it all before, thousands of times throughout our history." Vraltesh felt something he had not felt in a long time. Respect for an enemy. "Captain Morrison, I owe you an apology. I thought you were weak when you talked about peace." "I was wrong," Morrison smiled sadly. "You are not the first to make that mistake, Commander. Probably will not be the last either. But maybe you can help others learn the lesson without having to fight us first." As Vraltesh's damaged flagship began its journey home, he looked back at the human fleet. They were already helping rebuild the defense platforms around New Terra. They were not celebrating their victory. They were working to repair the damage, to help their wounded, to remember their dead. He thought about his 300 years of military service. All those battles, all those conquered worlds. He had thought himself a master of warfare, but the humans had shown him that he knew nothing. He had experienced combat, but not true war. He had fought for conquest, but never for survival. The humans had spent thousands of years fighting for survival. First against their planet, then against each other. They had refined warfare into a science and an art. They understood violence in ways that other species could not comprehend, and that understanding had made them powerful beyond measure. But more importantly, that understanding had also taught them when not to use violence. They could have exterminated the Corvathian fleet. Instead, they chose mercy. They chose to send a message rather than commit genocide. Vraltesh began composing his report to the Corvathian High Command. He chose his words carefully. knowing that the survival of his entire civilization might depend on them believing his story. I believed I knew war, he wrote. I thought my 300 years of combat experience made me wise. I thought the Corvathian Empire was the greatest military power in the galaxy. I was wrong about everything. He continued, humanity is not like other species. They are survivors from a death world who spent their entire history learning to fight. They have forgotten more about warfare than most species will ever know. What we call military might, they call restraint. What we call ultimate weapons, they call obsolete technology from their primitive era. Most importantly, they understand something we do not. They understand that true power is not just the ability to destroy. True power is having the ability to destroy and choosing not to. They could have killed us all. They chose mercy instead. That choice makes them